Hi everyone. In today's class, we're going to talk about the topic, the geological time scale. Though you might be thinking that this is a topic which is more important from geography optional, but why are you telling us in this GS class? It is not so true as such that this topic is only important for or relevant from optional. However, there are also questions who has been coming up from this particular topic. This is geological time scale. You'll find this topic in your NCERTs also. So this topic is very humongous and also is very complicated, but I'll try to make it as simple possible, as simple as it is, so that you understand it. You'll find some new names. You'll find a little difficult to remember these names, and you'll also you'll find difficulties in remembering it in a chronology way. But I'll try to make it as simple as it is, and also help you, give you some techniques to remember the different periods or the different names in chronology. Okay, so what is the geological time scale? So if in a nutshell, in a very simple way, if I tell you, it is nothing but it is the history of the evolution of the earth from the time it was formed till today. Okay, see, when the earth was formed around 4.5 billion years ago till today, the earth has gone through different stages, and the earth has also experienced different events. Okay, the earth was changed for a large number of time. There are various phenomena which took place on the earth, and since then there are also different changes like introduction of organisms, then introduction of insects, introduction of reptiles, introduction of mammals, introduction of human beings. Okay, so this entire history of the earth is studied under the geological time scale. Who gives out the geological time scale? It is given by International Commission on Stratigraphy. Okay, so let's deep dive into the topic. The entire geological time scale is divided into groups on the basis of time. So if I have to talk about the groups, we can broadly divide this entire evolution of the earth into two parts. The first part is Precambrian, and the second one is Cambrian. Why we have divided it? Because it is in this part where the earth was just forming, and there were various phenomena or various geomorphological or geographical events taking place, like formation of the ocean, formation of the continents, introduction of bacteria, and etc. But after the earth took its present form, there were introduction of a lot of living species or living organisms, complicated multicellular organisms, and this particular part is considered in, or is taken under consideration under the Cambrian group. So you can say that this is the point where there was no living organisms, and this is the point when the living organisms, they evolved, and also they became more and more complex with time. The entire geological scale is divided into various groups such as Eon. Eon is further divided into era. Era is further divided into period. Period is further divided into epoch, and epoch is divided into age. Eon is the largest time period, and the time period of era, period, epoch, and ages keeps on reducing. If you talk about Eon is divided into three different groups. One is called as the Hadean Eon. Second is called as the Archean Eon, and the third is called as the Proterozoic Eon. If you talk about Eon, this is the first Eon. So, and these three collectively is called as, is called Precambrian. So first we're going to understand the time period, and then later on we're going to see into the events which took place during this time. So Hadean, if you talk about Hadean, this is a time period which is around 4.5 billion years ago. What is this point? What happened during this time? It was the time when there was formation of the earth. It was the formation of the earth. See, during this time period of Hadean, what happened? The earth took its present day position after the Big Bang theory, right? We know about the Big Bang theory, that every celestial body, they went into the different directions and took their respective positions. Same like that, earth also took its position and formed its axis. Okay, so in the Hadean period, the earth took its position and the earth was cooling down. So during this time period, the earth was like a molten ball, like similar to the sun. It was very hot and there were a lot of gases released from this core of the earth or the interior of the earth. So the living organism, there was no question about living organisms during this time period. Next, if you come back from 4.5 to 3.5 years ago, you'll find Archean Eon. In this Archean Eon, what happened? The Earth was cooling down. The Earth was cooling down, and as the Earth cooled down, there was formation of continents, and we'll talk about it in detail. Okay, first understand the chronology. So there was formation of continent, and there was also formation of oceans. Next, if you come another 2.5 billion years ago, you'll find the Proterozoic. Proterozoic Eon. What happened here? Here you can talk about there was introduction of certain organisms, mainly unicellular organisms. Next, this is the period of Precambrian. Okay, after Precambrian, then starts the Cambrian. In the Cambrian, the Eon was called as, if you divide the Eon in the Cambrian, the Eon was called as Phanerozoic. The Eon was called as the Phanerozoic Eon. Here, as we have a lot of evidence, like in the Precambrian, the Eon was, it is divided, but we do not have much information or evidences about it. So that is what you have to remember about the Eon in the Precambrian. But in the Cambrian, you have to remember about the periods, you have to remember about the epochs, you have to remember about the era and also the ages. So in the Eon of Cambrian, there were different eras. There were different eras. The first era, the first era is called as the Paleozoic era. The first era is called as the Paleozoic era. If you remember here, where did we stop? We stopped in around 2.5 years ago. So basically from 2.5 years up to 550 years ago, from 550 you will find the Paleozoic. Next, from 550 to around 250, after 250 you will find another era which is called as the Mesozoic. From 250 to 660 you will find an era which is called as the Cenozoic. That is 60 to present day. So this is the present day to present day. So you can divide this into three eras. So if you are asked in which eon are we, you have to tell that we are in Phanerozoic eon. If you are asked in which era are we, you have to talk about that we are in Cenozoic era. Now these eras are further divided into periods. Paleozoic. Paleozoic is divided into Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous, and Permian. Now you might be finding it difficulty that how do you remember these names. First and foremost, this you can memorize it. That is the Eon. First Eon is what? It is the Hadean Eon, followed by Archean Eon, followed by Proterozoic, and Proterozoic is followed by Phanerozoic. Right? Phanerozoic is further divided into periods, eras, but here we do not have any divisions. So keep it simple. Okay, Hadean, Archean, Proterozoic, and Phanerozoic. We are presently in Phanerozoic. Phanerozoic is further divided into three major eras. Paleozoic. What is the meaning of paleo? Paleo means old. Zoic means time. So it is the old time. What is the meaning of meso? Meso means mid. Okay, in between. And then you have Cenozoic. Ceno means new. So Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. Paleozoic is further divided into periods, three important periods. And how do you remember this? You have to remember it as cos DCP. Okay, cos DCP. You can make any story out of it, but it is this numeric is cos DCP. C for Cambrian, O for Ordovician, S for Silurian, D for Devonian, C for Carboniferous, and P for Permian. We are going to look into the events also, do not worry about it. Now we just make the division. Next, the Mesozoic. Mesozoic is further divided into three periods. One is Triassic, next is Jurassic, and the third is Cretaceous. Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. When you talk about periods in Cenozoic periods are divided into majorly two groups. One is your tertiary, another one is your quaternary. So this is the division of your periods. Now, after a period, we have seen that periods are further divided into epochs, right? In epochs, not worry, you don't have to remember these epochs. You only have to remember the epochs of Cenozoic, that is tertiary and quaternary. Now, if we talk about tertiary epoch are important for us because it is during this epoch period when the mountains were formed. Primarily, if we talk about the Himalayas and this. So that is why it becomes important for us because when you read about Himalaya, when you study about Himalaya, you're going to get referred to these names. Okay, why this becomes important for us, we are going to see in the further time of our lecture. The tertiary is also called, tertiary is also called as the mountain building period because it is during this time period majority of the mountains which are found today, I mean the new mountains like the Himalayas and these were formed during this time period. Okay, here you'll find Paleocene. Second is your Eocene, next Oligocene, Miocene, and Pliocene. These are the 5 divisions of tertiary period. Now, if we talk about these divisions, these 3 divisions, Pliocene, Miocene, and Oligocenes are also called as the period for the formation of Himalayas. Okay, so it was during this time period you'll find when you read about Himalayas, you'll see about this period. So you have to remember it. Next, if we talk about quaternary, quaternary is divided into Pleistocene, Holocene, and the last one is Anthropocene. Okay, the Anthropocene epoch was recently added. That is the ICS, International Commission on Stratigraphy. They said that the time after 1960s, especially after the Second World War, the name will be there will be different name given to this particular time period, that is called as the Anthropocene epoch. So if you are asked in which eon do you live, you will tell we live in Phanerozoic eon. In which era we live in Cenozoic era. In which period we live in Quaternary period. In which epoch we live in Anthropocene epoch. And Holocene is divided into three age. One is Greenlandian age, which is around 11,000 years ago. Next is the North Grecian age, which is 8,000 years ago. And the third one is the Meghalayan age, which is 4,000 years ago till present day. Okay, remember in Pleistocene we had our last ice age, and also there was introduction of human beings after this ice age. So after Pleistocene we entered into Holocene epoch, Greenlandian age. So Greenlandian age came after Pleistocene under Holocene epoch, and after Greenland there was North Grecian age under Holocene, and finally the present age is Meghalaya age under Holocene. Okay, so what happens is that in the Pleistocene, when there was ice age and the entire world was covered with ice under the snowball effect, in the Greenland this ice started melting. Okay, and in the North Grecian there was more melting of ice around the globe, and in Meghalaya there was major floods where the sea level rise in most of the land areas or most of the part of the earth. And that is why in the Meghalayan age it is also believed that there was destruction of the Indus Valley civilization or the Harappa civilization, and major civilization got destroyed during this starting of the Meghalayan age. And after that civilizations, what happened, new civilization started. So just remember this in the historical perspective. What is Anthropocene? Now you might get confused about Anthropocene. It is a new epoch which was introduced by the Geological Society, that after 1960s or after the Second World War, when the earth or the world took a major change or made a major shift towards technology, towards lifestyle and other human behavior, that particular point has to be given a new name, that is Anthropocene. But remember, Anthropocene is still not official, but yes, we know about a particular epoch of Anthropocene after especially the Second World War, when there was more introduction of technologies, more introduction of innovation in the society, and human being has completely changed. So you can finally sum up that during this time period and during this time period of Anthropocene, there was major shift in the evolution of species. So after World War II, when there was a major shift of human evolution, that particular point is called as the Anthropocene. So we are in what? Holocene, Meghalayan age. The Anthropocene is not still yet official, but still remember about it. That is the epoch of Anthropocene has been put forward, but has not got acceptance yet of. Okay. So our era is Phanerozoic. So our eon is Phanerozoic. Era is Cenozoic. Period is Quaternary. Epoch is Anthropocene, and age, presently live in Meghalayan age. In Meghalayan age. Okay, so this is the division of the geological time scale: Eon, era, period, and epoch. Okay, and like I told you, it is maintained and updated by whom? International. It is maintained and updated by International Commission on Stratigraphy. These are the four major eons: Hadean, Archean, Proterozoic, and Phanerozoic. So now we are going to look into the different events which took place during this time period. Okay, so first talking about the Hadean eon. The Hadean eon. This eon was the formation in this time period. There was the formation of a solar system. The Earth took its present position and then started cooling down. During this time period, the Earth was continuously bombarded with a lot of volcanic activities and other celestial bodies, and thus the Earth was in a burning state. Okay, and the Earth had no living organisms, neither the Earth had any solid landforms. Everything was in liquid, and because of a huge amount of volcanic eruption. But however, after this period, what happened? There was cooling of the earth. So by the end of Hadean, that is around 3.8 billion, just before 3.8 billion years ago, there was the formation of the earth's early crust and the formation of this ocean. When the earth cooled down, there was continuous rain for thousands of years, and this rain, white rain, it's because from the volcano there was release of water vapor, and this water vapor condensed and fell down in the form of rainfall, or precipitated in the form of rainfall. Okay, next after Hadean is the Archean, that is 3.5 to around 2.8 billion years ago. In this Archean period, what happened? There was formation of certain mountains, some old mountains, and these mountains are even present today, and they are one of the oldest mountain or oldest rock structure. If I have to give you example of during this time period, one is Aravalli we have in India, one is the mountain range Aravalli. Now today you see the Aravalli has shortened its height. Okay, but remember that Aravalli was not short as it is seen today. It was very high, but over the time process it got eroded. Okay. Next, you'll find the Ural in the regions of Russia and Europe. It borders Russia and European countries. You'll find the Ural range. The Ural range was also formed in the Archean period. In the Archean period, there was introduction of certain bacteria which were unicellular. Okay, they were not multicellular; they were unicellular. Just named as prokaryotic. Okay, or prokaryotic bacteria. And the next is the Proterozoic. In the Proterozoic, what happened? When there was rain for thousands of years over this period, this water accumulated in the undulated zones of the earth, and in the undulated zones of the earth, there resulted into formation of certain water bodies, that is the oceans and the seas. And in these oceans and the seas, there were some vents found on the floor of the ocean, and from this vent there came out some geothermal energies from the interior of the earth. This geothermal energy made possible for the existence of some living species, that is, they gave the energy, and these living species came in the form of planktons. And these planktons, once they were formed, they started the process of photosynthesis, and with the process of photosynthesis there was introduction of oxygen. So here you remember, when the earth was forming, or when the earth was in its early stage, there was no presence of oxygen, there was only presence of carbon dioxide and other gases, okay, like hydrogen, etc. But oxygen was not present. Oxygen only came in when? During this particular eon of Proterozoic, and that is why it is also called as the Great Oxidation. Great Oxidation. Okay, it is during this time period that the unicellular organisms evolved into a multicellular organisms, which was basically called as the eukaryotes or eukaryotes. Next, after Proterozoic is your Phanerozoic, that is around 0.5 to present day, that is the eon which we are today. And this Phanerozoic is the stage where there was complexity of the living organisms and introduction of various other organisms such as reptiles, fishes, mammals, and etc. That is why in the earlier lecture we have divided This particular period is called as the Precambrian. Precambrian, and Phanerozoic onward it is called as the Cambrian. Why? There was more complexity of life, introduction of flora and fauna, and there was evolution of living species. So we are going to study about the Phanerozoic more in detail. We have also seen that the Phanerozoic is divided into further three major eras. Okay, the eras were Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. Paleozoic is further divided into periods. From this image we are going to understand about the various events. We are going to see in detail about the various events and phenomena which took place from the time when the earth was formed till today. Likewise, we saw this particular eon or this particular division is called as the Precambrian division, where it had three eon: Hadean, Archean, and Proterozoic. In the Hadean, what happened? There was the formation of the earth cooled down, and there was the formation of oceans and other landforms. Okay, it was during this time period where there was different bombarding happening on the earth's surface by some meteoroids or the volcanic eruption happening. Also remember, it is during this time period there was a large celestial body same as the size of the earth which hit the earth so hard that a piece of earth broke from it and went into the space. This particular piece did not go that far into the space, as it was attracted by the gravity of the earth and it started revolving around the earth. This piece is known as the moon. Okay, next, in the Archean there was the first formation of the plates, like the plates which you see today. They were formed in the Archean period, and also it was in the Archean period that there was formation of some mountains and oceans. Remember, it is in the Archean period where there was a supercontinent, like we had a supercontinent called Pangaea. Later on in this time period there was a supercontinent which was called as the Romalia. And we know in Pangaea, we have studied in Pangaea that the Pangaea was basically located in the southern pole, and then later on it broke into different pieces and the pieces moved toward the north, and that is why today in the world map you will see the majority of the land masses are found in the northern hemisphere. In Romalia, majority of the lands were in the northern hemisphere. They broke and went to the south. Why was they found in the north? It is because of the magnetic pole which was in the north. Okay, after it broke off from the northern hemisphere, it went to the southern hemisphere, and then again it accumulated and formed the Pangaea, and later on the Pangaea again broke and formed the present day earth or present day countries. Next, you have the Proterozoic. In the Proterozoic, what happened? There was the introduction of multicellular organisms who were called as the eukaryotes, and this multicellular organism later on evolved into complex multicellular organisms. So this was the Precambrian era. Next, after Precambrian, we will find another three divisions of era: Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. First, we are going to discuss about the Paleozoic, and then we will later see about the other periods. In the Paleozoic, we have seen that it is divided into periods called Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, and these two which you see is basically called as the Carboniferous. Then you have the Permian period. What happened during this period? Let us see. First, in the Cambrian. In the Cambrian, what happened is that the multicellular organisms, they evolved, and it is during this time period, that is the Ordovician and Cambrian. This period is also called as the period of insects. Periods of insects. This two, Devonian and Silurian, is called as the period of fishes. So we can say that in simple word, if we have to talk about, we can say it was the insect which came earlier, and then it was the fishes which came later, and after that other animals came in. Okay, so here there was the rise of coral, early shelled organisms, and there was primitive fishes in the last stage of Ordovician. And after Ordovician, Silurian, there were large numbers of fishes, and also this particular period of Devonian is also called as the age of fish. Remember, in the Silurian, what happened? There was these phytoplanktons which were found in the ocean, like we discussed. these phytoplanktons, they moved from the ocean to the land. In which period? They moved in the Silurian period. And by the period of Devonian, there was forest on the land, or evergreen forest on the land. So the entire land now had some living species of plants. Animals yet to come, because the animals are yet in the ocean, like fishes. Here it's only fish, so they are still in the water. Now fish will evolve and then they'll come to land. Next, as you understand that in the Devonian period there were large forests. After this Devonian period, in the Carboniferous period, these forests which covered the large section of land area on the earth, they for some reason got submerged under the land due to a lot of geomorphological activities such as earthquake, volcanoes and etc. So when this large plant species or large forests, they got subducted, what happened? They underwent a process of metamorphism, and this process of metamorphism resulted into formation of certain sedimentary stones. That is, these stones were formed biologically. Why biologically? Because these stones were formed from the dead plants, and this stone is called known as coal. That is why this particular period, Carboniferous, or which talks about the trapping of carbon, is the period where coals were formed. And because we know that the coal, the older it is, the better it is. So the coals which are formed in this period are one of the best coal which are found in the world. And where do you find this coal? You find this coal in Pennsylvania, Black Forest of Germany. You find it in Mississippian Valley. That is why the Carboniferous period is further divided into two more periods, that is Mississippian and the Pennsylvanian. So what do you understand by this? That this is the formation of coal. Okay, now when you talk about coal, you might have heard about Gondwana coal. There in India we have Gondwana coal. See, Gondwana coal was formed later on. That is why it is not of best quality. Coals are of four qualities: anthracite, bituminous, lignite and peat. This anthracite is the best quality coal. They are best. Okay. Second best is bituminous, and peat is the lowest grade of coal. That is, when you burn peat, you don't get much energy, you only get more smoke. But anthracite, you get the highest amount of energy, and this coal is used in thermal plants, nuclear plants, generation of electricity and etc. So this anthracite coal was formed during this Carboniferous period. So do we have Carboniferous coal in India? No, we don't have Carboniferous coal in India, and that is the reason we do not have anthracite coal in India. What do we have? We have bituminous coal in India, and the rest too are definitely there, but the highest amount of coal which is found in India are of bituminous quality. And when was the bituminous coal formed? The bituminous coal was formed somewhere here after the Permian period, in the time period which is called as the Gondwana. And that is why Indian coals are also called as the Gondwana coal. Okay, I hope you are clear about it till here. Okay, next, coming to Permian period. In the Permian period, a very interesting thing happened. Okay, what is it? That is the breaking of Pangaea. In the Permian, there was the breaking of Pangaea supercontinent. Okay, so when you study geography, you will be referred to this name as Permian. Okay, so just remember, it is the time period when the continents, they broke and they moved towards the north, forming the present day map or the present day landform location of different countries. Okay, next, after Permian, they started a new era which is called as the Mesozoic era. And this Mesozoic era is further divided into three periods: Triassic, Jurassic and Cretaceous. If we talk about Triassic is that period where there was introduction of dinosaurs. Okay, there was introduction of first mammal, and this mammal was introduced in rodent form, who were called as the Morganocodon. There was also introduction of flying reptiles. When was reptile introduced? Reptile was introduced in this period of Carboniferous. Okay, and this reptile started flying in the Triassic period. Remember, this flying reptile did not result into flying birds. Okay, they were not birds. Birds are different. Birds basically have evolved from pteropods. This is pteropod. From pteropods, bird evolved. But here they were called as flying reptiles. But remember, what is the major thing to remember is the Triassic period. There was introduction of dinosaurs. In the Jurassic period, it was called as the age of dinosaurs, and these dinosaurs were present in every part of the world, every part of the globe, and unka rajatya tha, hai na? And then after Jurassic, then you have the Cretaceous. In Cretaceous, what happened? In the Cretaceous, there was extinction of dinosaurs. These dinosaurs, they died because of certain phenomena or geographical phenomena, because of hitting of some meteors. Okay, we'll talk about that also, but understand these are the three important period in Mesozoic. Remember about Cretaceous, that it is in the Cretaceous when there was introduction of placental mammal. What is the meaning of placental? That is, they have the ability to give birth. That is, they can carry their baby in their womb and then give birth. Okay, so this is all about your Mesozoic period. Next to Mesozoic era, you will have the Cenozoic era. In the Cenozoic era, we have seen that the era is divided into two periods, Tertiary and Quaternary. Tertiary is further divided into two parts, that is Paleogene and Neogene. If you can't remember, you don't have to remember. What you have to remember is the major events. Let's look into major events. See, before the Cenozoic era, in the Mesozoic era, Cretaceous period, there was introduction of placental mammal, right? So this placental mammal evolved, and in the Tertiary period, there was introduction of the early primates. And in the Tertiary era, there was also spread of grassy ecosystem. So we can say that these early primates later on evolved in Quaternary period as the modern humans. So we can say, when did the modern human come into form? They came in the Quaternary period of Pleistocene epoch, the modern humans. Okay, here you will find another epochs which I already told you, that these epochs were called as the formation of mountains. These epochs were known as formation of mountains, and it is during this time period there was formation of Himalayas, Andes, Alps, and etc. That is why, because you see that this particular epoch is very near to us, that is why they are collectively called as young fold mountains. Next, in the Quaternary, you have the Pleistocene. Just remember, from Pleistocene it becomes important for us to remember things. Why? Because in the Pleistocene there was Ice Age. In the Pleistocene there was Ice Age, and in this Ice Age there was introduction of the Homo sapiens, that is the modern human. And after this, the modern human evolved, and in the Holocene, these Homo sapiens became as Homo sapiens sapiens, that is, they became further advanced. And after Holocene, there was the Anthropocene. In this image, you will find a red color text in a red circle where it is written mass extinction. What are this period? It is during this time period that because of certain geomorphological events or certain extraterrestrial event, what happened? There was mass extinction of organisms, and any organisms who could survive this extinction later on went on to evolve and form new kind of species. Okay, so remember how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had around 5 mass extinction. We do not know how many mass extinctions were there, but these are the 5 recorded or the evidences of 5 mass extinction. And remember that humans were formed in the Pleistocene, and Pleistocene was an ice age. There were large now. There were other ice ages also. Like even in the Archean, you will find an ice age, and here in this ice age, you will come across a term called snowball effect or the snowball globe. What it is nothing but an ice age. So the latest ice age was in Pleistocene, and it is after this ice age you can talk about the Homo sapiens were introduced, and after that we evolved and formed the present day Homo sapien. So this table of geological time scale gives a detailed description about the various periods, epochs and the events. Here the age is not mentioned because the age is very contemporary, and this table it's old table. There are no tables available yet of where you see the divisions of ages of Holocene, but however this is sufficient for you to memorize and remember the various events. What is in nutshell, if you have to end if in nutshell if you have to end and see what is important for us to remember, is the first thing you have to remember these three eons. You have to remember Carboniferous, where the formation of cold. You have to remember about the Permian, when the continent broke, that is the Pangea broke, and the Pangea, the continents, they moved towards the north. You have to remember about the Tertiary, where there was this formation of Himalayas. You have to remember about Pleistocene, when there was an ice age and there was the early human appearance. Okay, and then you have to remember about Holocene. Thank you. This is what we have to talk about in our geological time scale class.